Is the DCU Superman in trouble? Well, nobody really knows. Well, I mean, I suppose James Gunn knows. But then again, he's biased, isn't he? He's going to think the film's great no matter what. Yeah, so. But anyway, rumors abound. In the announcement of the delays and postponements of Batman films, the Batman Part 2 being delayed yet again, which at this point, it's not unreasonable to question whether the movie will ever get made. Now, there's been a lot of takes on this from other YouTubers and whatnot, and watch the Midnight's Edge a take on this, and it brought up a pretty good point there in that due to the really spectacular success, in my opinion, of the Penguin Show, which is far superior to the Batman film, which I didn't really care for very much, but the Penguin Show was really good. And by all accounts, did very well for Warner Brothers. And so to capitalize on that, you're going to want the Batman follow-up to get done as soon as possible. Well, whatever the reason, the excuses being there's no script yet. Reeves just couldn't hammer it out or what have you. I had suspected that he probably had some draft or outline for what he wanted to pursue. I mean, certainly by now. But you want to gauge what's the reaction to the Penguin Show. With the success of the Penguin Show, I would think it's a no-brainer that Penguin should be the main villain of the Batman 2. And you should have had some strategy in mind if that's the case, to start thinking in those lines about how do you fashion this, and what does the Penguin do, and so on and so forth. And whatever other villain they might have thought of going with, had been rumors, Mr. Freeze and Clayface and stuff like that. Despite those being very fantastical characters, maybe they would have been toned down for it or what have you. But nevertheless, at this point, no, it should be the Penguin. You can throw in a few other, Rogues Gallery characters that might pop up. I don't know, maybe even the Joker shows up. But after that performance with the Penguin, that's what you would want to do. But by the time this is 2 years later, and again, the conflict that could happen between your DCU Batman and your Matt Reeves Batman is impossible to avoid. Depending on how long you're going to go with this. So that's a serious concern there for that iteration of Batman. Meanwhile, as for Superman, suddenly there was the story that the test screenings didn't go very well, and that people were concerned and worried about this. And this largely came from Jeff Snyder, who's one of these guys who says he has all these insiders who give him scoops and whatnot, and that sort of thing. So he was on a podcast talking about it, and that's the take he took from this, and referenced the Hollywood Reporter, where they didn't really come out and say it was bad, but they didn't say it was good either, and this sort of thing. And so if it was good, they would be buzzing about it and all this. Well, it seems he's more in line with it being bad, and is kind of stuck on that, whereas we really don't get a whole lot here telling us that. And one of the examples was that they said the tone of it was the first Captain America movie. Now, I'm assuming they mean the Captain America First Avenger, not the Roger Corman Captain America from the 90s, or what was it, Red Brown in the 70s? And then the other one, the Mummy. Well, of course, everyone says, do they mean the Kurtzman Mummy with Tom Cruise? No, I think they mean Brendan Fraser. And when you think about the tone, if you will, of those, which were both period films, which would be interesting, but it doesn't appear to be the case for Superman. But nevertheless, that tone from Captain America and the Mummy, that would be really fitting for Superman. So I don't see these as negatives at all. So the other claim was that Nicholas Hoult stands out. Okay, he does a good job as Lex Luthor. And that the visual effects hadn't been completed yet at the time that this was shown to a select few. And said it said it had the least amount of humor than any gun film, but there's still humor throughout the film. And they think most people will be satisfied with the movie, and it should be received well enough to continue Gunn's DCU. Well, that pretty much shoots down the whole idea that that there's some serious trouble here. Now, there are elements already just from the teaser trailer, which is the only thing anyone has seen outside of Gunn and his crew and all that, of course. And, Nathan Fillion's haircut, Superman's costume, which is a bit more serious, and that I'm not liking it. But if the overall film is really good, I can forgive it. Can the rest of the audience? I don't know. But yeah, would rather it be a better suit. But other than that, it might be a pretty good movie. Now, all along, I've said for the position that Warner Brothers is in, and DC itself, the movie can't just be good; it has to be great. Now, the opinion that it would be received well enough for Gunn to continue, I don't know how much close to the edge they can get. I mean, I am of the opinion it has to reach $1 billion. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't need that. But the history of this with the DCEU in its early days was, Warner's seemed to panic when they couldn't get the movies to $1 billion. They didn't until Aquaman. But you had your highs and lows, and I think earlier on the problems began when they panicked, because they weren't making Marvel movie. Well, you were late to all of this, and you were going to have to take time to build yours. They didn't know that Marvel was going to do itself in with crappy movies later on, because had they taken the time to build theirs, then they'd probably be king by now. But it didn't work that way. A lot of meddling and 11th hour stuff was the biggest problem. If you don't like Snyder's vision or what have you, you have to deal with that at the script level. And some of the elements they did. He talked about that himself quite a bit, where they said, no, you take that out. That's too crazy and that sort of thing. But ultimately, it's too late to suddenly change, Justice League into a Marvel movie and that kind of thing. And the rest, of course, is history. But here, you've got this really one shot. And despite how unfair it is, whether it's Gunn or David Zaslav or whatever, who basically inherited this, no, you got to hit a home run. Getting to first base, it won't be good enough. And I think that's where they are. And in a lot of ways, it's unfair, but that's the way it is. I don't know. Just based on that trailer, I'm not really seeing greatness, but it's just a trailer. So a lot of this with the rumors here with Batman, I would take that more seriously because of how much time has gone on and how much of a delay this is and that sort of thing. With Superman, it could be much ado about nothing. I don't think anyone discussing this you just don't know. So it's not enough to really, oh man, that's it. And I'm hearing things. Well, one guy says he heard things from some people. And even from the quote, it's like, yeah, I think it'll do all right. So I'm like, well. So I don't think there's enough here to say, well, that's it. It's over. Never mind. And I hope it does really well. I want it to succeed. But in the end, right now, I have no idea. I've seen a couple of things that trouble me, but other things look pretty good. And so it turns out, just going to have to actually see the movie. I know. It's a crazy idea, but yeah, it's obvious. But the idea of a test screening going bad or what have you, there's plenty of examples. And another thing from the Midnight's Edge talking about this, and the first thing that came to mind was the test screening for the original Star Wars that George Lucas did. It went badly. It went terrible. But from that, they figured out that, the edit had to be recut. Of course, this owed to his wife at the time, who edited the original Star Wars and saved the movie, and, it was great. Other examples, and coming to a little bit more recent, with Batman versus Superman received a standing ovation. And, of course, it didn't do well. So it's just, it's a lot of things that can play into this, but it also is similar to a trailer can be really awful, and yet the movie's good. A trailer can be really great, and the movie's terrible, and things like that. And so, depending on what state the film was in at the time of the screening, obviously would, color the result, and at the time that James Gunn admitted about the screen test, which it appears to be the only ones that happened, which was some time ago now. And he said, yeah, that's how I gauge. And sometimes he can tell you what you need to fix and what might be going wrong, or what might be right, and all this sort of stuff. And then he talked about there were pickup shots, and everyone, oh no, it's reshoots. Reshoots have gotten a bad name because of Marvel and Star Wars even, And so you haven't heard anything on par with that, where you have, enough footage to make 3 movies that was made for one, which is apparently the case for the current Captain America film, and that sort of thing. So there doesn't appear to be any evidence of that sort of thing, at least not yet. So if they're hurrying to shoot some more stuff, well, I guess we'll find out. But ultimately, there's not enough here to make a conclusive judgment on it, or to panic or worry that much, other than the situation that the whole thing, ordeal and initiative was in from the get-go, because of the troubled history that Warner Brothers has had trying to get this thing off the ground. As for the Batman, those delays, that's pretty serious at this late date, and especially since they no longer have the ability to take advantage of the Penguin's success, which is probably the biggest problem here, at least in the immediate. So by the time you get to 2027, it just doesn't sound like a good idea all around. Of course, there's got to be a whole lot more going on that we just don't know. With Gunn wanting to just merge the Batman into his universe and that sort of thing, which it would have been would have made a logical sense at the outset, but it didn't happen. So again, how long do you go with this? And especially, Robert Pattinson isn't getting any younger. So, these are realities. So anyway, there you go. More tidbits about, Batman and Superman.